Thank you for joining us for our CSA webinar, Veterans, Spouses, and Survivor Benefits, What Advisors Need to Know. The Society of Certified Senior Advisors is pleased to welcome our 3 veteran presenters today. All 3 are with Vietnam Veterans of America, Chapter 295 in Indiana. Chris Barthouse, a CSA and financial advisor, Dennis Smalling, Service Officer and President, and Michael Dolan, Indiana State Council President. Hello, Chris, Dennis, and Mike, and thank you so much for joining us today. I'll hand it over to you.
Good afternoon, CSA. On behalf of Vietnam Veterans of America, I want to thank you for attending this webinar on veterans, spouses, and survivor benefits. What advisors need to know. No, I'm not Adrian Cronauer, but I like to play him. VVA is proud to partner with CSA to help you, the advisor, understand some little known and often misunderstood veterans benefits and how to help your aging veterans get them. Vietnam Veterans of America is a veteran service organization. Remember that term. It'll come up a lot during this presentation, and there will be a test. The VVA members served in the U.S. military on active duty or in reserve in the States or overseas during the Vietnam era, roughly 1959 to 1976. There is no requirement for them to have served in Vietnam. As a matter of fact, only one of your presenters today, Dennis Smalling, President of Vietnam Veterans of America, Samuel L. Davis, Chapter 295, actually served in Vietnam. He was there in 1971 and 1972 and has Agent Orange poisoning to prove it. Our other presenter, VVA Indiana State Council President Mike Dolan, was commissioned into the Air Force upon his graduation from Texas A&M, Go Aggies, in 1971. And as an ICBM officer, there were no duty positions for him in Vietnam, so he served out his tour in a silo deep underground in a much colder climate with his finger on the nuclear Armageddon button, waiting for Dr. Strangelove to transmit the failsafe codes. And if you don't understand all those references, find somebody with gray hair and they'll tell you about 60s Armageddon movies. Now, I'm the baby of the group. I wasn't drafted until 1972 when the war was over by the time I finished training. The genesis of this presentation was the realization by Mike and Dennis that their roles as service officers, they were helping a lot of veterans get the benefits they'd earned, but there were many benefits their spouses and survivors were not being made aware of. So they decided to create a program to inform these people of the benefits available to them and how to qualify for them. We've been giving a briefing similar to this one quarterly for the last several years and now have made a video of it that is available on NAPA Indiana's YouTube channel. More about that later. In order for you to understand our presentation and how you can help veterans you come into contact with, you'll have to know a few terms. These are government programs. There are no government programs without acronyms. The first acronym you have to know is VSO. To make it more confusing, VSO has 2 meanings. This is abbreviation for both an organization and a position within that organization. VSO stands for Veteran Service Organization. A VSO, as the name would imply, is an organization of veterans intended to serve other veterans. The most famous include AMVETS, American Legion, VFW, DAV, VBA, and of course VBA. These are not to be confused with military veterans advocacy groups like the Association of the U.S. Army, Marine Corps League, Navy League, the Air Force Association, Military Officers Association of America, and a whole lot of others. All these groups have a similar mission of influencing legislation at the state and national level in support of the military and its veterans. These organizations also provide veterans what is often an even more valuable service. As we know from our CSA studies, seniors often seek a sense of belonging and self-worth. For many veterans, membership in a veterans organization brings back the sense of camaraderie and purpose they had in the military, and they enjoy spending time with people who have a shared experience. For example, my brother is a genius. I'm not lying. He attended Kenyon College, and if you think Harvard is hard to get into, try to get into Kenyon. Upon his graduation in 1968, he received a Ford Fellowship to study ecology at the University of Chicago. He no more than arrived in Chicago than he received a letter from the president inviting him to a 2-year all expenses paid vacation courtesy of the U.S. Army, 11 months of which he spent in the Garden Spot of the Republic of Vietnam. After his discharge, he completed his PhD at the University of Chicago, worked at the National Laboratory, founded his own environmental consulting firm, wrote books, lectured all over the world, and taught at the university level. Now in his late 70s and retired, he doesn't spend his evenings at the university's faculty lounge. He spends his evenings at the local American Legion, swapping stories with his fellow Vietnam and Vietnam era veterans. It's also worth noting that although the number of veterans who can qualify for VBA membership is rapidly decreasing due to our ages, the membership in VBA is actually increasing. What distinguished veteran service organizations is that they have another VSO, Veteran Service Officers. Confused yet? Hopefully we'll clarify things. VSOs receive special training that certifies them to help veterans file claims with the Veterans Administration and to represent those veterans with the Veterans Administration when making a claim. Some VSOs are volunteers who work without compensation. Others are employees of the service organization. The most important thing is that veterans generally receive VSO services without charge. In most cases, veterans will not even have to be a member of the VSO that is helping them. For example, VBA 295 helps veterans of all eras. We spend a great deal of time now with veterans of the War on Terror, those who served in Iraq and Afghanistan. The key here is that VSOs understand the language and procedures of the VA and are usually essential to veterans successfully filing their claims. I know I tried to file my disability claim on my own for about 5 years and got nowhere. And then I got with Dennis, a veteran service officer, and within 2 years, it did take some time, but in 2 years, I got a 50% disability rating. Although this is not the primary focus of our presentation, I want to make you aware of TRICARE in case you run across retired military or military family members. TRICARE is the military's health insurance. It covers military families and military retirees under the age of 65. When military families and military retirees reach age 65, their primary health insurance becomes Medicare, and TRICARE becomes TRICARE for Life. TRICARE for Life is essentially a Medicare supplement that covers all copays and deductibles, as well as providing a drug benefit with no donut hole or annual cap. The way retirees and their family members qualify is very simple. When they reach age 65, they simply enroll in Medicare Part A and Medicare Part B. Once they're enrolled in both Medicare Part A and Part B, they are automatically enrolled in TRICARE for Life. Now, I know we probably have a lot of people out there that do Medicare and Medicare Advantage plans. Congratulations, your head is now above water. Annual enrollment's over. People who have TRICARE for Life really don't need a Medicare Advantage or Medicare supplement plan. Now, don't start throwing things at your computer. That doesn't mean they might not want one. There are a lot of Medicare Advantage plans that have something attractive to veterans that they may want one. I have a Medicare Advantage plan because it gives me a free gym membership. That's all I want it for. Mike and his wife both have Medicare Advantage plans because those plans have features they find beneficial. There can be some drawbacks to having both, even though it's okay to have both. If the beneficiary of TRICARE for Life goes to a provider outside the MA plan's network, they may be required to pay the copay up front and then file paperwork with TRICARE for Life to get reimbursed. Be aware of that. Also, make sure that if you're offering them a Medicare Advantage plan that takes them off Part B, don't do that. If they're off Medicare Part B, they're off TRICARE for Life too. So only offer Medicare Advantage plans that do not take them off Part B. Now, the primary focus of our presentation will be benefits provided by the Veterans Administration. And one of those things is disability. You must be aware of the difference between VA disability and civilian disability income insurance. In the civilian world, disability income insurance, Social Security disability, workers' comp, and that sort of thing provide benefits to reimburse people for lost income. The VA disability is meant to compensate for lost function. You may find veterans working full-time and being rated 100% disabled by the VA. How is that possible? Well, the VA has determined that they have sufficient lifestyle effects of injuries or illnesses they incurred during their military service that they must be compensated at the top level. For example, in my case, I have a 50% disability rating, but until recently, I worked full time. My disability rating was based on pain in my knees and feet and other joints in my body that prevent me from doing the things I enjoy, like taking long walks, hiking in the mountains, running, even swimming. I am compensated at a 50% level because I cannot do those things, and I'm still able to work. Qualifying for VA disability can be an arduous process. Because the veteran has to prove their disability is service connected, and that can be difficult. Like I said, it took me 2 years even after I got a service officer. So it's a process almost impossible to navigate without VSO support. So if you see someone trying to get a VA disability rating, tell them to go to a VSO. They can go directly to the VA, but the VA people at the VA desk may have hundreds of files on their desk. VSO might only have a dozen or two. Now, the VA has certain cases where the process is much streamlined. These are called presumptive disabilities. VA has a list of illnesses that are related to serving in a certain area during a certain period of time, usually related to being exposed to toxic chemicals. If the veteran served in that certain area at a certain time and has one of the specified illnesses, the VA presumes that this disability was a result of military service. For example, my wife's uncle was in the Air Force and served in a military hospital in Vietnam. He developed Parkinson's disease in his later years. If you served in Vietnam and have Parkinson's disease, it is presumed that your Parkinson's is a result of exposure to Agent Orange. I put him in contact with Dennis. Dennis filed his claim, and when within 6 months, I think probably only in 4 months, he had a 100% disability rating. Now, they recently passed the PACT Act, which greatly expanded the number of presumptive disabilities. And to cover that, I will be followed by the lovely and popular Dennis Smalling. Dennis.
Hello. The first thing I'll talk about is the PACT Act. The PACT Act is a law enacted in 2022 expanding health care and benefits for Vietnam War, Gulf War, and post 9/11 veterans. It covers exposures to burn pits, Agent Orange, and toxic substances, and also qualifies their spouses for some benefits. It expands the number of presumptive illnesses. Having presumptive means that if you served in a designated area where you are presumed to have been exposed, it is constantly being updated, and you need to communicate with a veteran service officer for the latest updates. Also, veterans who served at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, have presumptive illnesses from drinking toxic water. Burial benefits. The veteran is eligible for a variety of different burial benefits, including a plot in a national cemetery, a flag, a headstone, or medallion. A presidential citation and military honors were available. There are different compensation rates for service-connected death, non-service-connected death, and dying in a Veterans Administration hospital. Often, the funeral home you deal with will help fill out the applications, but not always. A VSO can help you find out what you may be entitled to. DIC.
Yeah, okay.
DIC is dependent and indemnity compensation. If a veteran died in the line of duty or of a service-related injury or disease, or if the veteran has been 100% disabled for more than 10 years, a survivor is entitled to DIC. It is absolutely imperative that you get the correct cause of death on the death certificate. It can be the cause of death, or it can be a secondary or contributing cause of death. Be aware of presumptive or service-related conditions. When a loved one passes away, you need to have thought out your situation. It is difficult to get a death certificate amended. Losing a loved one is a traumatic experience. Pre-plan what you need to do beforehand. DIC payments are $1,699 a month in 2026. But some factors can increase it a few hundred a month. Survivor's pension. Survivor's pension is a tax-free benefit payment to low-income surviving spouse or unmarried children of a deceased wartime veteran whose death was not service-connected. The survivor is limited to a maximum annual pension rate, referred to as MAPR. The MAPR currently has a ceiling of $11,699, which includes Social Security, pensions, and retirement funds. Medical expenses may be subtracted from your income. The total assets may not exceed $163,699, which includes 1 year of MAPR, but does not include your present dwelling and auto. Consult with a VSO to determine eligibility. Other survivor benefits include accrued benefits. Accrued money that your veteran has due before their passing, including the final monthly payment, will be paid upon their death. If they have an active claim after a decision by VA is made, the survivor will be compensated the money for the time period between the claims filing and the date of death. You have 1 year from the date of death to file for accrued benefits. Home loan guarantee. When a veteran dies, the Veterans Administration loan benefits pass to the survivor. And state benefits. State benefits can include tax relief, education, and other benefits. Check with your state's Department of Veterans Affairs to find out what is available in your state. And healthcare. I will turn that over to Mike Dolan.
Hello, everyone. I'm Mike Dolan, and I'm going to talk a little bit about a program called CHAMP VA, C-H-A-M-P VA, the Civilian Health and Medical Program of the Department of Veterans Affairs. Note the word civilian. Those eligible for VA healthcare are not eligible for CHAMP VA, but CHAMP VA claims are processed through the VA. I know that's a little confusing. CHAMP VA is a healthcare program which shares the cost of certain procedures and supplies with eligible beneficiaries, which we will define in a moment. CHAMP VA only covers care that is medically necessary and appropriate. There used to be a program called Champus, some of you may have heard of, but this is not Champus. It's morphed several times since the early days. The Veterans Health Administration in the VA, otherwise known as VHA, processes CHAMP VA claims, evaluates claims eligibility, and authorized benefits. The veteran himself is usually not eligible for CHAMP VA because they have benefits through regular VA or other government programs. This is for the spouse and survivors, and sometimes the children of 100% disabled veterans. Those eligible for CHAMP VA are not eligible for TRICARE benefits and vice versa. CHAMP VA is a VA program, and TRICARE is a regionally managed health program. If a veteran was killed in action, the survivor will always be eligible for TRICARE and is not CHAMP VA. Other CHAMP VA participants must be in one of 5 categories, which can be summarized as possibly a surviving spouse or children, and possibly a primary caregiver who does not already have medical insurance. Four things impact eligibility: marriage status, student status of children 18 to 23, caregiver status, and eligibility for Medicare or TRICARE. Other health insurance refers to a coverage an individual may have through another source, such as an employer or former employer. In this situation, individuals can retain their existing plan, and CHAMP VA will serve as a secondary payer. Reporting OHI to CHAMP is mandatory, not optional. What is the impact of Medicare on CHIP VA? CHIP VA provides coverage for eligible family members and survivors of qualifying sponsors. Individuals under age 65 will be covered solely by CHIP VA. When beneficiaries are enrolled in Medicare, CHIP VA becomes a secondary payer. In these cases, regular Medicare or Medicare Advantage pays first, followed by CHIP VA, where the family pays a fixed deductible of $50 a person and $100 a family per year. And then CHIP VA pays 75% of the cost up to a maximum of $3,000 a year and 100% after that. To remain eligible for CHIP VA, beneficiaries who qualify for Part A health or hospitalizations must be enrolled in Medicare Part B, must also be enrolled in Medicare Part B or outpatient procedures. The standard premium for Part B is currently $202.90 per month in 2026 for most individuals. Although this amount could vary based on individual income. There is usually no cost for Part A. Please note that enrollment in both Parts A and B is required for continued CHIP VA eligibility. Are children covered under CHIP VA? Generally, a child becomes eligible for CHIP VA coverage upon reaching age 18, unless enrolled in an accredited educational institution. If the child marries or no longer resides in the household before turning 18, eligibility ends on the date of that event. Exceptions exist for helpless children who are permanently incapable of self-support. The question usually comes up, should I sign up for Medicare and CHIP VA, stay with an employer's plan, sign up for Medicare Advantage or Medicare Supplement with a commercial insurer? These are complicated questions. So my suggestion would be to get with a good VSO that knows the different plans. They would at least know where to get the answers on which one might be a better fit for you in your situation. There is a brochure called Medicare and You 2026 available at medicare.gov that goes more in the weeds on these options. Not a lot of people are on CHIP VA, you may have noticed. It was designed to fit a certain category of people that were not being served by the VA. And for most people, CHIP VA isn't even an option because they have VA or TRICARE benefits. CHIP VA is a great option for those who are eligible for it. VA.gov and Medicare.gov have more information if you're so inclined to look them up.
Next thing on the agenda is long-term care benefits. This is a very a benefit that is largely understood by most veterans and in fact most advisors. I'm a veteran. The VA will pay for my care. How many of you have heard that one before? I've heard that one in meetings of professionals, the Intercompany Long-Term Care Insurance Conference. I heard experts say that. But as a matter of fact, at the last time we gave a briefing to veterans, which was last month at VBA 295, I put this up, said, I'm a veteran. VA will pay for my care. Who's heard that before? And somebody said, shoot, I heard that today. So it's a common misconception. A lot of veterans and a lot of veterans, advisors of veterans, think that if a veteran receives his or her health benefits at a VA medical center, the VA will pay for their long-term care as well. That's not true. It's kind of like Medicare. Medicare doesn't pay for long-term care. VA will pay for long-term care under certain very limited circumstances. VA healthcare, the benefits are provided under a priority group system based on a various categories, including where the wounds occurred, was it a Purple Heart wound, etc. And the highest priorities get the most care. Most VA medical centers will handle pretty much everybody, but some people will not get the benefits. But just because they get the VA healthcare doesn't mean that's going to get their long-term care. Payment for custodial care is reserved for those with serious debilitating injuries that require it. I'm also going to point out that about 25 years ago, some of you may be familiar with this, the government contracted with LTC Partners, which is a joint venture between MetLife and John Hancock, to offer a long-term care insurance group plan to all federal employees, military, retired federal employees, and retired military. In the first 6 months, it was guaranteed issue, and then you had to, if you were less than 6 months into your career with the military or the government, then you would have to apply for it and go through underwriting. The bottom line is, this is kind of like there used to be a statement on a Medicare statement. They took it off because the Social Security Administration doesn't want to give people bad news. There was a statement on the Social Security statements that said, you know, Medicare doesn't pay for long-term care. This was kind of the federal government's message. If the government was going to pay for their long-term care, why would they offer them a guaranteed issue long-term care insurance policy? These are the long-term care services the VA does provide, but we'll cover where it is limited. They do offer 24/7 nursing and medical care, physical therapy, help with daily tasks on a limited basis to certain veterans, comfort care, and support for caregivers. And that's a fairly new issue, and we're going to go into that in detail. But this isn't for everybody. Nursing home options, that's the first thing people think of. I know that you're all well trained to understand that nursing home does not equal long-term care and vice versa. There's a whole continuum of care involving long-term care. The first thing people about is nursing home. The VA will pay for nursing home for veterans who are 100% service-connected disabled or have a 70% service-connected disability and are homebound. They pay for nobody else. And oh, by the way, the veteran doesn't go to the nearest nursing home that he likes or he or she likes and walk in and say, I'm a veteran, I'm 100% disabled. The VA will take care of my care. It doesn't work that way. They have to go to a nursing home that is contracted by the VA. And they are not that common. I have a couple I work with on the west side of Indianapolis. The wife's father is a Vietnam veteran who is slowly dying of Agent Orange poisoning. He's in a nursing home, and they had a real hard time finding a VA contracted nursing home within an hour of their home. And again, I'll just point out the federal long-term care insurance program again, because that was kind of a signal that the federal government isn't going to take care of it. Although the issue with that is a couple of years ago, they suspended sales because it was performing so poorly, and they said they suspended it until 2027. So we don't know if that's ever going to open up again. So the question, the bottom line is the long-term care options available for veterans are fairly limited. Aid and attendance benefit, we're going to go into details. There are a lot of misconceptions about the aid and attendance benefit, all sorts of conflicting information. As you know, aid and attendance is one of 3 pension levels under the VA. The first one is a basic pension, and that is for veterans who are disabled not due to a service-connected injury. It's for indigent, elderly, disabled veterans. Why does it have to be somebody who was injured or their disability is based on non-service connected issues? Well, because if it was service connected, they would be getting a VA disability pension. The second pension is a pension housebound, basically the same issue, same qualification, and we'll talk about what those are. But the veteran has offered a basic pension, but he's housebound, so he gets more. And then pension with aid and attendance would applies to spouses, because aid and attendance benefit is available to spouses and widows of veterans. The eligibility for the veteran has to have had 90 days of active duty with at least 1 day during a period of war. And the VA has a website. You can go to the VA website. It lists all the dates where we were considered to be at war. It's really hard in the last 100 years to have served during a period where there was no war, but there are several gaps in there, particularly between Vietnam and Desert Storm, where people may have served their full tour and not had a period of war. They have to have a discharge other than dishonorable. They don't have to be heroes. They just can't be criminals. Their surviving spouse, who's going to get a pension, must have been married to the veteran at the time of his passing and has not remarried. They must require assistance of another person to perform activities of daily living. This is very much like long-term care, and they must meet income and countable asset criteria established by the VA. And when we go through this, you'll see that the VA criteria very much tracks Medicaid, with some little exceptions. But there's a limit to assets and a limit to incomes, very much like Medicaid has it. And they must be 65 years old or older, or be totally disabled. The eligibility, again, for wartime, the emphasis is wartime, veterans, widows, and spouses. This is not to give them a good lifestyle. It's to keep wartime veterans, spouses, and widows from getting literally thrown out onto the street. The limit is a net worth of $163,699. That is as of December 1st, 2025. That was good for another year. The amount changes every December 1st. So they have to have a net worth of $163,699. Countable income is deducted from the eligible benefit. We'll go into that in detail. And also, there is a look back period of 3 years. Like I said, this is similar to Medicaid, except they didn't update the VA requirements in 2005 like they did the feds. The federal Medicaid standards were updated to include a 5-year look back period under the Deficit Reduction Act of 2005. VA look back period is still 3 years, so you just can't give it away to get back. And we'll talk about how the countable income is deducted from the eligible benefit. Countable income for VA purposes, again, this very much tracks Medicaid. If Medicaid says it's income, it's pretty much income for VA purposes. Expenses can be deducted from the income for VA purposes so you can get a bigger benefit. Expenses that are deductible are educational expenses. So if you try to get this benefit, you might want to try to get a PhD from a very expensive university. That's not something I'd recommend. The most common is unreimbursed medical expenses. It's kind of like the IRS, but a little bit different. The unreimbursed medical expenses greater than 5% of the MAPR, which we'll go into that. You can't have a government program without an acronym. MAPR stands for maximum annual pension rate. And so whatever pension rate they've got, they can deduct medical expenses more than 5% of the MAPR. And we'll go into the MAPRs here next. Is the questions of a veteran, or you can ask a veteran to see if they're eligible. If you get, they need to have a VA pension. They may be eligible for that. Need another person to help with activities of daily living. Or they have to stay in bed a large period of time, not because they like laying in bed to watch television, because they just can't get out of bed. They have to be a patient in a nursing home due to loss of mental or physical abilities, or and I won't go into all this, basically they've got to be legally blind. Am I eligible for a VA aid and attendance benefit or housebound benefits as a veteran or survivor? Housebound benefits eligibility must be eligible if you get a VA pension and you spend most of your time in your home because of a permanent disability. Doesn't mean you have to stay in your home because you broke your ankle or threw out a knee and have to be there for a couple of weeks. It has to be a permanent disability that doesn't get better. Oh, and by the way, there is an aid and attendance benefit and a housebound benefit. You can't get them both at the same time. This is some examples of MAPRs. Remember that term, maximum annual pension rate. This is off the VA website. This is current as of this year. And if you go to the VA website, and by the way, the American Council on Aging has a really good website with a lot of information about veterans benefits as well. Sometimes we get grumpy about the VA because we swear half the employees at the VA are webmasters. And they go in and change the web all the time. And it's like they put some of the information and say, well, let's put it over here. Nobody will see it there. But you can find it if you look hard enough. But there are a couple of dozen categories for the pensions. First one we'll look at is the pension, basic pension for no veterans, with no dependents. If you don't qualify for aid and attendance, the basic pension is $17,440 a year. They don't qualify. If they qualify for housebound benefits, $21,312, and if they qualify for aid and attendance, it's $29,091. Again, which one do they qualify for? Best to go to a veteran service officer and help them find out. Veterans with at least one dependent, different category. They don't qualify for housebound or aid and attendance, $22,838 a year. Qualify for housebound benefits, $26,709 a year. And if they get aid and attendance, $34,486 a year. Again, these numbers change every December 1st. These are the numbers for December through December. Maximum monthly benefit is the MAPR divided by 12. They get the MAPR in 12 equal installments. Surviving spouse of a veteran, $1,558, another category. Veteran with no spouse or dependent children, $2,424. Married veteran where one spouse requires care, $2,873. Now, the aid and attendance benefit is limited by income and maximum annual pension rate. And this is the formula for it. They get the pension. But that pension is they take the mapper, we've looked at some of the mappers, and they deduct the countable income from the mapper so that they figure out what the monthly income is. There we go. This is an example right off the VA website. A qualified veteran with a dependent non-veteran spouse and no children, the veteran qualifies for aid and attendance. The couple has a combined annual income of $10,000. This is the way the VA will compute it. It says their mapper for that category is $34,485. They deduct the annual income of $10,000 from the mapper. And that gets them an aid and attendance benefit of $24,486 per year, or 12 equal installments of $2,040 per month. When determining eligibility for this, they add income to net worth. So let's get an example. A veteran has a net worth of $145,000, an annual income of $14,000. The VA makes the computation, 155 plus 14 equals, this is high level math here, guys, 169,000. The total is more, excuse me, than the net worth limit of $163,699. So the veteran would not receive veterans pension benefits. Okay, well, he's pretty close. Maybe we can qualify him for it or her. Because they can't give it away because there's a 3-year look back period. So their car doesn't count, so maybe they get a new car that costs an extra $5,000, get them down to the level. If they're more than that, they could do an income annuity that the income goes to somebody else. Now, I will warn you about some people in my profession who are less than ethical. They haunt the hallways of nursing homes and assisted living facilities searching for veterans and veteran spouses and widows. And they say, oh, well, I've got this great benefit for you if you can get down your net worth down to this level. And they think they can do it no matter how much their income is. And they prefer them to have a high net worth so they can take most of that net worth and put it into an income annuity that would be totally unsuitable, high cost, and mostly good for the agent to qualify for aid and attendance. I had an example. My mother had $750,000 when she went into assisted living. Next thing I know, my brother, who's a genius in many things, but not this one, called me and he said, oh, I talked to him and said, oh, with my mother, well, at the time the cap was 100,000. If my mother would put $650,000 into an income annuity, which would pay the agent about a 10% commission, and give that income to somebody else, then she could qualify for this at that time about a $1,200 a month benefit. And he said, that sounds like a really good deal. I said, it is for the agent. What if mom needs to get nursing home care? Where's the money going to come from? I think it's fine to help people get down to that level if they don't need the additional capital and it works in their best interest and it's not a huge amount. You know, I have personally in my practice helped people qualify for Medicaid by doing an income annuity that the income goes to somebody else. But I only did that after I had exhausted every other avenue to get them benefits. So just watch out for that. As the book title says, beware the naked man who offers you the shirt off his back. VA long-term care community services. This is a relatively new issue. When we were working on these presentations for a long time, we thought maybe this wasn't really well in place. It does vary geographically, but the last presentation we had, it was attended by a Navy veteran who is a nurse who now works in this area, in the Indianapolis area, and says it's working great. So long-term care community service, they have to be enrolled in VA healthcare. Obviously, the VA is not going to provide it for them if they're not enrolled in the VA. They have to have a clinical need. You just can't have it because you want it. The service has to be available in your area. That's key. It is not available in all areas. That includes geriatric evaluation, adult daycare. This is really, really, we get down to that. We all know here that there is an extreme shortage of adult daycare. So the question is adult daycare even available in your area, and will it be available through the VA? Homemaker and home health aides, respite care for the family, skilled home health care. This is a caution. We'll talk about something on the next slide. We talk about this. The VA does not pay for room and board at any of these services. Also, here's a warning. Copays may be required. Work with your VSO to find out if you qualify or if your client qualifies and if there are any copays. What's new? Home-based primary care. Remember when the doctor used to make house calls and then you make house calls anymore. Now they start doing it at the VA. That's much more effective for the VA. Medical foster homes. This is a new concept, and I didn't even realize the VA was doing it until I went to the VA's website here in Indianapolis. Medical foster home is kind of like a foster home for adults as opposed to children. So disabled adults and the people in the foster home take them in and take care of them. This is one of those there for medical foster homes. There is a room and board element. As we already said, the VA does not pay for room and board. Also, the medical foster homes is very much location dependent. It may not be available. When I went to the VA website in Indianapolis, there were basically 2 medical foster homes in one city in Indiana, and that was it. Program of comprehensive assistance for family givers. This is a really good benefit for those who are going to try to stay at home, and we'll go into that in more detail. But here comes the new caveat. Co-pays may be required for all of these. Home-based primary care services. The doctor comes to the home or the nurse practitioner. You have care management services. You know how important that is to make sure that the patient gets all the care they need and it doesn't conflict. Social work to get them into the benefits they need. Rehab, psychology. We know how important that is. Nutrition, because we know so many of our seniors are poor nutrition. Pharmacy benefits. And again, the caveat, co-pays may be required. Comprehensive assistance for family caregivers. This is a brand new program. And again, it's going to be location dependent. It's not going to be everywhere. And because it's a brand new program, you can expect some growing pains. But for the veteran to get comprehensive assistance for family caregivers, the veteran has to have a VA disability rating of 70% or higher. That's that 70% number again. Excuse me, I'm allergic to Indiana. 70% or higher. A veteran was discharged from the U.S. military and has a date of medical discharge. Why is that in there? Because we have veterans who will get discharged from a military facility and go home and be cared for at home before they're actually discharged from the service. The veteran will need at least 6 months of continuous in-person personal care. That varies a little bit from traditional long-term care insurance. It normally says at least 90 days. In this case, it's 6 months of in-person personal care. And the veteran, again, needs to be enrolled in VA healthcare. This is real important to consult with the service officer, see if the veteran will be eligible and if the services are available in their area. Eligibility requirements for the family caregiver. Not everybody gets to do it. They must be at least 18 years old. That must be true. And their spouse, son, daughter, parent, step family member, extended family member of the veteran, or someone who's living full-time with the veteran, and they're willing to live with the veteran if the VA designates them as a family caregiver. How many caregivers can the veteran have? Can't appoint everybody, but he gets 1 primary caregiver and 2 secondary. Why would he need 2 secondary? You should all be pretty familiar with this. Primary will probably burn out if they don't get some relief. So they'll have 2 secondaries, 2 backups when the primary caregiver needs to take a break. The eligible primary and secondary family caregivers can receive these benefits for doing this. Education and training is how to take care of the veteran. Mental health counseling, you think that might be necessary caring for a veteran. Travel, lodging, and financial assistance when traveling with a veteran to a remote location to get care. They also can get a monthly stipend to take care of the veteran. And they get access, here we go, here comes Champ VA again. They can have access to Champ VA if they don't qualify for health care from another agency or another healthcare plan. So really good for they really take care of the family members, as the family caregivers as well, assuming if the veteran qualifies and it's available in their area. This is the website to find out more about this program, www.caregiver.va.gov. This is what the website looks like. The problem with the website, it's got a lot of information, but it tends to be about a mile wide and an inch deep. There's a lot of information. They don't really get into the specifics you want to have. If you have a veteran service officer, they will help you find the specifics. But at least if you go through there, you will get the right questions to ask the veteran service officer. VA long-term care supports a service website. It's another good website as well, www.va.gov/geriatrics. That's what that website looks like. And you see those pictures in there? Those are videos. Have a lot of videos explaining the programs and how they work. Now, again, it's about a mile wide and an inch deep. It will give you a lot of general information and anecdotal information, but it really doesn't tell you how to qualify for or what the benefits are. It will, by studying this website, going to this website, you can learn about the benefits and develop right questions to ask a veteran service officer. Bottom line, veterans benefits are designed to provide some long-term care services for veterans and their widows. They're not a substitute for responsible long-term care and retirement planning. Now, veteran long-term care planning is slightly different than long-term care planning for civilians. It's pretty much the same with one small exception. Got to gather your documents. What documents? You got to have a will, powers of attorney, medical and financial, and for the veteran, you need several copies of their DD-214. A DD-214 is their discharge paper, and not just one copy, several copies, because they may need several copies. So I have to give a copy of the DD-214 to a funeral director to get them the military and burial benefits they deserve. They may have to provide a DD-214 to the veteran service officer to get spousal benefits. And one of the things we know is when a veteran dies, his or her file is closed by the VA. If the spouse wants to make a claim for other benefits, then they'll have to have a DD-214 for the deceased veteran so they can open up a new file for the spouse. So I have several copies. I met with a veteran a couple of years ago, and he said, I've got it covered. I've got a copy of my DD-214 in my file. I said, go get several copies. Your kids may not know they're going to need several. They may give one to the funeral director, and then they need one for something else, and the original is gone. And if you don't have the original, it's really hard to get a different one. And pick a service officer. That is critical. The veteran's coming up on his or her time, get a service officer that's going to help the family get through the regulations and get the benefits they have earned. We have our other presentation, the one that we give to veterans, on the NAPA Indiana YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube, look for NAPA Indiana. We partnered with the National Association of Insurance and Financial Advisors to get this information out there, just like we got it to the CSA. And go to the video tab and search for veteran, spouse, and survivor benefits. And there it is, right over here, the green one. That's Dennis right here. We did another video with him. If you wanted to see what he looks like. You can go there, and please go there. That's the actual presentation we give to veterans. We certainly encourage you to share that with veterans or send it to veterans who may need that information. This is our contact information. You can contact us at any time. We are happy, and the best day of our lives is when somebody comes and asks us a question. After we presented in Baltimore, I got a call from California where somebody was working with, a CSA was working with somebody in California, questioned about aid and attendance benefit, and I was able to answer his questions, and he went back and did the right thing for his client. So we really get excited if somebody calls us and asks a question we can answer. I'm going to leave that up there so you can find us. And at this point, we're going to stop and answer any questions you may have had. And take it away.
All right, thank you. All right, the biggest question from a number of people is how to find a veteran service officer.
I could answer that one. Go to any of the veteran service organizations and ask for one. And that's a good question because there are different levels of service. Some service officers are really good, some aren't so good. Or you just might not have you might have a personality conflict with one. If you don't like the one that you got, you can always ask for another one. But any veteran service organization, you go to them, say you need to have a veteran service officer, they'll point you in the right direction.
both states also have county service officers. And in Indiana, we have, I think it's 99 counties, and we have like 96 service officers right now. And usually to do that, you just go down to the courthouse and they'll pass along the information.
And so I assume you need to work with a veteran service officer that's in your local area. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah, they'll know the state and as well as federal laws, right? And they also know the VA office.
Got it. Okay. Let's see. Are veterans eligible for the pension benefit if they are receiving Social Security, or is this included in the income calculations?
Yeah, they can receive Social Security, but again, their pension is reduced by their outside income, and that includes Social Security income. So let's say they're eligible for to keep the math simple, their veterans pension is eligible for $2,000 a month, and they're getting $1,000 a month from Social Security. They will only get $1,000 a month from the Veterans Administration.
A couple of questions on children of veterans. Number one, I know you talked about children of veterans and said that there are certain circumstances for various things. One question, can children of military dependents qualify for TRICARE for life, or is it just the spouse of military personnel? And then a secondary question, what are the benefit requirements for disabled children of veterans?
I can answer the TRICARE for life one. Yeah, TRICARE for life is only for military retirees and their spouses. Now, if there is a child of a military retiree, the same rules apply to TRICARE as would apply to any other health insurance. They can get it, keep the TRICARE and pay a premium for it up to a certain point, and then at a certain point, they have, if they're in school up to age 24, and then at age 24, they have to drop off and get their own health insurance. Well, what about disabled children of veterans?
I can answer that.
Yeah, go ahead.
There are limited amount of benefits for dependents. If a dependent gets damaged while the veteran is in the service, there's a chance you could get some help for them if they're eligible for insurance. If they're underdeveloped, if they have a mental problem or something like that, then they also they're eligible for insurance. We have a problem right now with Vietnam veterans, and we're looking down the line for burn pit veterans that their children are coming up with disabilities, and there is a registry in Denver, Colorado, and you need to get a hold of a service officer if the veteran has children with disabilities and get them registered.
So children are permanently incapable of self-support is the word the VA uses. Talk to those children.
Okay, here's a specific question, but I think it will be helpful to pose this one. Someone whose father was a retired Navy captain aviator. He passed away very recently. He served from 1954 to 79. This person found VA disability paperwork in his file cabinet that he did not finish filling out. Is it too late for them to pursue this now that he has passed?
Yes, except in the situation where you have a presumptive, or you can back up medically that he died from something that impacted him in the service. If he stepped 1 foot in Vietnam, he's covered for certain presumptives, and the widow is eligible for DIC. But if he hasn't filed, it has to be able to go back and connect his death. That's why the death certificate is so important, to either a service-related incident or a presumptive disease or injury.
And I'll point out, this is why we do this. Particularly, we're looking forward to the CSA helping us so much get this message out, because a lot of veterans don't realize what they're passing up to their families if they don't file claims.
question about how long things take. I know you mentioned various scenarios, 4 months, 6 months, 2 years. In general, what would you say when someone asks, how long does it take to get the benefit and how long is the approval process?
You do take that one.
The VA used to be 6 months, 2 years. That was very common. I've seen answers in the VA. My opinion is they're picking low hanging fruit. The easy ones, you might get an answer in 4 to 6 weeks today. And so the harder ones may take a little bit longer, but they've hired some more adjudicators. And so the old days of 2 to 3 years, or I've had people come to me and had a claim for 9 years, and they never, number one, they probably didn't have a very good service officer like me and Dennis, but also they, it just takes a little while. But the easy ones, presumptives, like Dennis was saying, submit the paperwork and they're approved. Boom, that's it.
How can I assist someone with a low disability rating?
We file a supplemental claim if there's a reason to review the previous decision. We file a supplemental claim requesting a review based on either new information, or maybe we think that the original adjudicator made the wrong decision. We can also file a higher level review. So there are certain procedures the VA has to handle, and that's probably what Dennis and I do most is somebody that has a low percentage to try to increase it. Then we provide additional information, which will require them to go in and look and possibly change the percentage.
What is the first step to take to help someone get aid and attendance to get into an assisted living facility besides going to our local VSO?
The first step is actually to go to a VSO, because you won't know whether they're even going to be eligible for aid and attendance unless they go to a VSO. And quite honestly, there's not a connection between aid and attendance and assisted living. They go to the assisted living, having aid and attendance doesn't matter. They just help them pay for it. So the first step for getting aid and attendance is to go to a veteran service officer and state your case, and have the veteran service officer tell you whether they're even eligible, and then gather the information to make the claim.
And final question, and then I'll have a few announcements. How are psychiatric conditions considered for VA disability benefits?
How are psychiatric conditions considered for VA disability benefits?
Well, they
PTSD.
do a lot of testing and analyzing, and they have changed that system to where people with combat infantry badges, people with Purple Hearts, people who were actually in severe combat, and people who have a documented incident that was pretty traumatic, they get a better review. Other than that, they send you to a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist does an in-depth analyzation, and they look at it, and then they make their decision. Problem we have a lot of times, they'll lowball that decision, and we have to file extra paperwork to get it up where it belongs. But start with a veteran service officer, because if you try and file that one on your own, you'll get in trouble because you don't know what they're looking for.
Okay, well, we're at the top of the hour. Thank you on behalf of all CSAs and attendees, Chris, Dennis, and Mike, for an excellent presentation and providing us all with this valuable information. Thank you for taking part in the Society of Certified Senior Advisors presentation of the CSA monthly webinar series. We hope you enjoyed it, and we invite you to please join us again next time. Thank you.